This video will show a few inverse trig examples. If you want an explanation of what inverse trig functions are, watch my previous videos. In this example, we have a right triangle. We know the hypotenuse side C is 2. We know one of the legs, side B, is 1. They're asking us to find angle A. So first we have to decide, are we going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? So since this is the hypotenuse here, we know we're going to use either sine or cosine, tangents out. So is this side the adjacent side or opposite side? So hopefully you see this side B is adjacent to angle A. Since this is the opposite side, so we're going to use the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So that means we have to use cosine, right? So we're going to have cosine of angle A equals side B over side C, which of course means we can replace side B with 1 and side C with 2, right? Just like that. Right, so we're trying to solve for angle A, so we need to isolate angle A, which means we have to get rid of this operation cosine. What's the opposite operation of cosine? You should know that it's inverse cosine, but we have to apply the inverse cosine to both sides, just like this. So we're going to take the inverse cosine of the left side. So these two operations cancel each other out. What are we left with? On the left side, we're left with angle A equals, and because we have to take the inverse cosine of both sides, we're going to be left with, on the right side, inverse cosine of 1/2. And make sure the inverse cosine is on the left side of this fraction, not on the right side. Okay? So when you punch this into the calculator, make sure you're in the correct mode. If the question wants degrees, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. If the question wants radians, make sure your calculator is in radian mode, of course. So when you punch that in, if you're in degrees, you should get 60 degrees, right? And that will basically be the same as pi over 3 radians. That's a pi over 3 radians. But if you're in radian mode, your calculator probably gave you a decimal answer of about 1.05 radians, which would be about the same thing. So all of these are acceptable answers depending on whether you're supposed to give degrees or radians. These two are the same thing. Pi over 3 radians is the same as 1.05 radians. In this example, it's another right triangle. We're given these two sides, but this time we're given the two legs and not the hypotenuse. So actually, if we know we're not going to use a hypotenuse, you can actually get rid of sine and cosine right away, since both of those use a hypotenuse. So we pretty much have to use tangent. Another way to think about it is this side is opposite angle B and this side is adjacent to angle B. So again, it's got to be opposite over adjacent. Either way, we're going to use tangent. Tangent of angle B is going to be equal to side B over side A, right? And of course, we can replace B with 1 over rad 3. I guess I'll have to write that in. So square root of 3 looks like this, right? So we have to isolate angle B, so we have to get rid of the operation tangent. So the opposite operation of tangent is going to be inverse tangent, right? So we take the inverse tangent of both sides. The left side, these two operations cancel each other out. We're left with angle B, right, equals, we got to take the inverse tangent of the right side as well. So we take the inverse tangent of 1 over rad 3. So again, make sure your calculator is in the right mode, depending on what the question wants, whether it wants degrees or radians. Make sure you're in the right mode. And degrees, that should give us 30 degrees, which would be the same as pi over 6 radians. But if you're using your calculator, that'll probably give you a rounded answer of, let's see here, about, this is approximately equal to 0.524 radians. So 0.524 radians, which is going to be the same thing as just a rounded answer, okay? So all three of these answers are the same thing. It's just these two are radians and this is degrees. So all of these work. So we have one more example. In this example, we're given the hypotenuse and one of the legs. So since we're given the hypotenuse, we know it's got to be either sine or cosine. Tangent is out. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the relationship with this side to this angle? This side 4 is opposite this angle x. So we know it's got to be sine and not cosine, since we're using the opposite side 4 with a hypotenuse 5. So it's going to be sine of angle x equals 4 over 5, right? So we're trying to isolate x. So what we do is we take the inverse sine of both sides since that's the opposite operation of sine. But whatever we do to one side, you got to do to the other. But basically, these two operations cancel out. So the left side, we're left with angle x equals inverse sine of 4/5. You're going to punch that into the calculator. Make sure you're in the correct mode, right? And you will end up getting about, how many degrees here? You're going to get about 53.1 degrees. 53.1 degrees. Or you're going to get about 0.927 radians, depending on which mode you're in. So just make sure you're using the correct units based on what the question is asking. If this video was helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.